Hello everyone, and welcome to the Microsoft Security Update Summary, where I will present a short recap of what was released today, July 8th, 2025. My name is Josh Daniel, and I'm a risk manager in the customer service and support organization here at Microsoft. I'm going to start this video with an overview of the release, and then I'll dive into a few vulnerabilities. Please note that the details of the vulnerabilities that I'm covering in this video may change, and the authoritative location for information will always be the online content in the Security Update Guide. Before I dig into today's release, I like to compare it to the previous 12 months to see how it stacks up. This month, there are 138 newly disclosed CVEs in today's release. Of those, 41 are remote code execution vulnerabilities, which is a little bit above our average over the past 13 months of just under 36. Next, I'll move into scoring, where Microsoft uses the industry standard Common Vulnerability Scoring System, or CVSS. This allows all of us to compare vulnerabilities in different applications and from different vendors in a standardized, repeatable approach. This month, the highest scored CVE comes in at 9.8, which is a little bit above our average of around 9.5. The average score across the entire release comes in at 7.47, which is just a little bit below our average of 7.5 over the past 13 months. There was one publicly disclosed vulnerability in today's release, and that's about half of the average we've been seeing over the past 13 months of 2.15. These are vulnerabilities where in one way or another, the existence of the vulnerability has been made public. It could have been something as simple as a security researcher posting that they found an issue, or it could be on the other side of the spectrum. It could be something along the lines where full proof of concept and details needed to build exploit code could have been released. Next, there are no vulnerabilities that were known to be exploited prior to release, and that's obviously lower than our average of around just over 2.5 over the past 13 months. Okay, now that we've compared how this release kind of stacks up to the previous 12 months, let's dive into this release. We'll start with an overview chart where those of you that have seen this video before, we put the Windows products towards the bottom of the chart, in this case about the bottom half. And then we move up into products that are not necessarily serviced every single month. With Windows, we've been averaging in the mid 50s up into the low 60s, depending on the operating system. So we're clearly above that average this month with almost 100 with Server 2025. And then as we move up the chart, we have Office and SharePoint with a handful of vulnerabilities that are being addressed this month. Azure has a couple of vulnerabilities this month. Developer Tools and Visual Studio have a couple vulnerabilities. SQL Server has 3 vulnerabilities this month. Configuration Manager has a vulnerability that's being addressed, and rounding it all out, there's a vulnerability in Teams that's being addressed with this month's updates. First vulnerability that I will talk to today is CVE 2025-47981. This is a critical remote code execution vulnerability in the Spinago component of Windows. This one was privately disclosed with no known exploits out in the wild. This component it negotiates the type of security technology between a client and a server. The base CVSS score here is 9.8 on that scale of 10, so this hits that high water mark in terms of CVSS score. The attack vectors over the network, the attack complexity is low, no privileges are required, and no user interaction is required here. There is a documented mitigation here for the versions of Windows that are still in mainstream support, essentially to disable a group policy that is enabled by default. For more information, check out that CVE article on the specific group policy that needs to be disabled. There are no documented workarounds as far as the affected software. It's all versions of Windows that are in mainstream support, whether it's Windows 10 or 11 on desktop, Server 2016, 2019, 2022, or Server 2025. The next vulnerability that I will talk to is CVE 2025-49697. This is a critical remote code execution vulnerability in Office. This is privately disclosed with no known exploits out in the wild. This has a base CVSS score of 8.4. The attack vector is local, the attack complexity is low, no privileges are required, and no user interaction is required to leverage this vulnerability. One thing I will point out is that the preview pane is an attack vector for this vulnerability. There are no documented mitigations or workarounds for this. As far as the affected software, it's Office 2019, Office 2016, Office 365 apps for enterprise, Office long-term servicing channel 21 and 2024 for both Windows and Mac, Office Online Server, and Office for Android. The final vulnerability that I will talk to today is CVE 2025-49719. This is an important remote code execution vulnerability in SQL Server. This is the one that was publicly disclosed in today's set. There are no known exploits out in the wild. This has a base CVSS score of 7.5. The attack vectors over the network, the attack complexity is low, no privileges are required, and no user interaction is required to leverage this. There are no documented mitigations or workarounds for this. As far as the affected software, it's SQL Server 2016, 2017, 2019, and 2022. One thing I'll point out here is with SQL Server, they use cumulative updates, and so not all cumulative updates are supported here. So for example, Server 2022, its cumulative update 19 is the one that there's a security update for it. So if you're running an older version, for example, maybe cumulative update 18, the workflow here is to install cumulative update 19 and then install today's security update. All right, that's all I have for you today. I want to thank everyone for joining me, and I will talk to you all next month. Thank you.